This meeting is held in accordance with Open Public Meeting Act 10:4-6 at SEEK. Annual notice having been forwarded to the New Jersey Herald and the New Jersey Sunday Herald and posted on the bulletin board maintained in the municipal building for public announcements. Would you please rise and join us in a salute to the flag? The flag right here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
and the
republic
which is stands
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Danielle, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Gaffney?
Here.
Mrs. Crock?
Here.
Mr. Lejo? Mr. Rayhill? Mr. Ray?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Mr. Toppin?
Here.
Councilman Schindler? I don't think I saw him.
Bermuda.
Mayor Francis?
Bahamas or something. Here.
Mr. Gilbert?
Here. Okay. The minutes of our last meeting of February 2nd, 2021 were distributed electronically. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion.
Hey, is there a second?
Second?
Danielle?
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Toppin?
Happen.
Ron?
Ron, say yes.
Mayor
Ron?
Mayor Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. Okay, we're going to change the order of the agenda just slightly. We're going to move the zoning officer report up in front of the work sessions. So zoning officer report, Bill Donegan.
Thank you. Yeah, I was contacted a little about a week ago. Napa of Stanhope is going to be moving into 52 Lakeside Boulevard. Most recently, that was was it Ray Foods? And they're going to be using the entire building. I spoke about this with Bill Haggerty, and the scenario is they are going to, it's basically auto parts, which is a conforming use, but they do plan on having between, say, 4 and 5 vehicles for on-site for deliveries. They deliver, I guess, to the different gas stations and dealerships and whatnot. And Mr. Haggerty said that maybe it would make sense if we could just discuss it just a little bit tonight. I believe that the on-site keeping of these vehicles triggers the need for just an amendment to site plan, and I believe it triggers the need for a parking variance because we actually don't have the required amount of parking for the square footage of the building to begin with.
That's correct. I spoke both with Bill and with John about it. It appears that there is a site plan that's available, and it's pretty recent, actually. It's not one of our ancient ones. I see that Mr. Hollander is on the line with us. He is the applicant. He's the applicant's attorney. And it appears, as Bill indicated, that what this would require is an amended application for amended site plan approval to show where these vehicles would be parked on the site overnight and generally, and where potentially customers would park on the site. And there would be need for a variance for a number of parking spaces, although the demand for this business may actually be less than the demand for other uses that have been made of the site.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember that was an auto parts store at one time and they used to have?
Yes, it was.
There's an auto parts store. Was it Krauser's in there? A pharmacy was in there?
Yep.
That used to be the back on pharmacy for years, and Krauser.
And the auto parts store. They had vehicles.
Yeah, I would think that if they want to park overnight, that they should probably park on the side where it's not a tremendous hill.
Yeah, well, they should come in before the board, present an application for amended site plan approval and a parking variance, just to show us what they're doing there. So we have some testimony before the board and understand what's proposed.
Were they planning on taking the whole building? Is that their plans?
Yep.
Yes,
That's what I hear.
yes.
That's great.
How many spaces currently exist on that? For all,
Way more than they need.
Yeah, presently, I think it shows 23 sites.
Oh, my gosh.
so why does he have to come before us?
Because it's a site plan change.
Yeah, he just has to show us where he's going to park those vehicles overnight and if there's any other changes on the site.
Yeah, he has to give testimony because there is a variance associated. So he has to give, his testimony regarding the parking. And if he's going to have signage and if it doesn't comply with our requirements, he's going to have to show that, and that may or not be a variance. So, I don't think it's a heavy lift for him in this because the site plan was prepared a while back. So it's not like he has to go out and get a whole new plan. So I don't think it's a heavy lift for him to get through the board.
An exercise, but is it a necessary exercise, John?
Right.
Well, can we say that to every application? We can say that a lot, and then not doing it. But
had that use on that property and used to have vehicles stored there. I think it was only 2. But he had delivery trucks there. Why are we doing this when you have 23 spots? You're never going to see that.
Well, again, he is triggering a variance with parking, and if the board wants to. When I go very unorthodox and just say he doesn't require it, it's the discretion of the board. I think it's a little, hurts the applicant in a way for rights, but I think you're going a little too laxity with not requiring this one.
Well, we should just have a presentation to establish on the record exactly what they intend to do there, so that if they do start operation and it's different than what we'd expected, we're not caught off guard. So it's just a good exercise for the property owner, the applicant, and the board as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Are they purchasing the property or are they leasing it? Do you know?
I don't know.
I understand they're purchasing the property.
Okay.
There's an investment in our town.
Great.
Oh, absolutely. This is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Mr. Hollander have anything he would like us to know about this project? Mr. Hollander, you're muted.
Am I muted? Okay, good. My understanding, and I'm unfamiliar with it, is that this board did approve, must have approved parking variances in the past for the previous use, because we're not adding any more. We're not changing the parking than what was previously there and has been, and continues to be the same number of parking spaces. I don't know what your findings were at the time of the past approval, but I would assume that whatever the needs were at that time are virtually identical, except that the eventual use by the buyer will be less intense than for a convenience store, because they don't, over half of their building will be used for wholesale purposes, and their retail customers are very few. If they get 2 retail customers at the same time, it's very unusual. So that the parking needs are not identical, but even less than what you had previously approved. And so I don't know what more we would present than what's already on your record. That's
well, no, we just should have some testimony about the number of employees, the nature of the application, so that we do have a record. So that because We've been
Yeah, this
disappointed.
is-
We've been disappointed and surprised in the past, and we don't want that.
This isn't like getting a getting a front yard setback, building a structure, and then just having, you don't have to go back and justify that variance again. But a parking variance is usually unique, and the testimony is associated, directly associated with the use that's going into that's proposed. So I don't think this is going to be a heavy lift for you to justify the variance, but you can't rely on the testimony for a different use that went onto the property.
Right, and I'm sure we're going to be asking how many trucks will.
And the board will ask, the board will do its typical due diligence and ask all the questions and make sure that, what is proposed is going to be approved, and we don't find any surprises afterwards. Like all of a sudden you see something that no one expected. That's the purpose. Another purpose of the site plan approval is just to make sure that, what is proposed is what's going to be, operated on the facility, and no surprises.
Well, the other thing that you mentioned is they're probably going to want to change the sign. They want to put a sign up there that's different than what's up there right now. What's that going to look like? And is there a problem with the signage? Which is another question.
Yeah, those are things that they all comes into the resolution regarding what type of signage they're going to modify. And so, those are all the common things that go into site plan approval. And, I don't think this is, like I said, a couple of times now, I don't think it's a heavy lift, but our ordinance does not, permit, the zoning officer that much latitude on a variance of this kind. It just, I think it is something that, it's these type of things, the board, in my opinion, they should go to the board, and it's not a lift to go in front of the board with this type of application, but the board discretion regarding what goes on. There may be applications where the lighting is poor and the lighting doesn't comply with the standards. The board has a jurisdiction to ask for more lighting or different signage or whatever the case may be. So
Okay.
The only issue I see is the overnight parking. Everything else remains the same, and whatever is there is pre-existing. I don't think this is very difficult at all. If you're going to park 2 or 3 company-owned vehicles overnight, we have to adjust the site plan accordingly. And that should be that. I mean, everything else is already there and has been there for many, many years, whether it's a sign or whether it's amount of parking spots. I mean, that actually, in my opinion, the Napa use is less intensive than previous uses.
Yeah, well, they can certainly work with Mr. Rushke, Mr. Haggerty, and Mr. Donegan and get that all straightened out before they come before us.
Sure.
The applicant should have good guidance now. It should be good.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll go on to the work session. Mr. Pappas would like to talk about 15 Lakeside Boulevard. The applicant wishes to repair and improve the current structure on the site. The use for the structure would be similar to previous and recent uses for office space, for administrative and dispatch purposes. Also proposed will be site improvements, landscaping, and a sign. Is Mr. Pappas here?
Yes, I am. I'm here with my wife, Melanie.
Hello.
All right,
Okay.
Good evening.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, so we have a small home improvement, land improvement business, and most of our customers are south, Morris County and other areas. So we're not anticipating traffic going into the town, or very little. I shouldn't say none, because we like to also patronize local businesses whenever possible. Primarily, the use would be similar to what I understand you had there recently, which was a limousine business where there was someone there, maybe dispatching 2 people, 3 people in the office, something like that. The cars would go in and out during the day. Our vans would be dispatched once a day, typically. So they go out in the morning, come back in the end of the workday, whatever that time is. So actually, the use should be much less than a limousine business going in and out all day, picking up people and dropping off cars. We'd like to fix the building, improve the building. It's not only a reflection of us and our business to have it looking good, but we'd like to be a good neighbor, and it's kind of the gateway to the town there. I think I believe it's the 2nd or 3rd property when you come into town. And right now it's been vandalized. If you were able to go and look in the windows, you could see somebody was in there, and there's holes in the sheetrock, the windows are broken. So all that would be fixed, not only inside but out. We would put some plantings on the property, some grass along, right now it's just a gravel where we could put grass on the curbside. And of course we would maintain it. We'd like to put a sign there, a simple sign, maybe about, not a big sign is what I mean by simple sign, freestanding on the ground, probably about 100 square feet or so, give or take, depending what's allowed there. And really, that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Pappas, how many vehicles do you have there?
Right now, I have 2. The vehicles may not always be stored there because the people that may be using them may take them home to their home at night and just leave from their homes to the job site. So I don't anticipate too many there. If you want some kind of estimate, I would have to think about it and give you a call back, answer your question and email you back or whatever you prefer. It's taking into account, obviously, the future. I don't want to tell you that we're going to stay where we're at now, 1 or 2 vehicles. I wouldn't be honest with you for my plans and what I'd like to do with the, every small business owner dreams of expanding and growing.
Right.
Mr. Pappas, what kind of business is it again? I missed that.
Sure, no problem. Home improvements, site improvements. So we could remodel someone's kitchen. We could put in a patio for somebody outside, improve their lawns. And I actually have been in contact with the person at the town, and forgive me, I don't recall her name. She's in charge of the HUD grants there for the to improve the homes in town. So I'd like to work with her. I offered my time to give seminars or whatever she may need to help people.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
What will you be storing? Will you be storing anything in the building?
Yeah, it's very small, so it would be limited to office furniture.
So none of the materials that you're going to use for fixing up the homes where you are going to be stored there, like
inside the
cabinets
building? No, we wouldn't store that in the building. Maybe down the road we'd try for, we'd either get a shed based on what's allowed there or maybe go for approval for a garage or something like that. But that building would be for office use.
Okay.
Just to let you know, we've discouraged the use of that property for anything like a shed or a garage because of the problems getting onto the road with it. As far as using the building as you expressed and keeping a couple of vehicles, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 vehicles there occasionally, I don't see that as being a problem. I'm just speaking for myself, not for the entire board. But I do want you to know that we have discouraged people in the past from putting up additional buildings or parking any big rigs there that would require a big turning radius.
Right. Yeah, we don't have any vehicles like that, any big rigs. It wouldn't be a garage like a repair garage would, which would have cars coming in and out of it all day. It wouldn't be that type of structure either, or use, I should say.
What about stored materials and trailers?
I have a small trailer. It's not, we don't have any big trailers. Materials, I don't have any plans to store materials outside. If there's something allowed, we could put up a buffer, some trees or some shrubs or a fence or something, if whatever you require, if we do that in the future, but there's no immediate plans for anything like that.
Anything else from the board?
Well,
if they come back with something relative to an office, but then they want to go ahead and expand beyond the office, would they need to come back to the board for additional approval?
Yes, they would.
Right now, I don't see any change of use because that's what the use was. Actually, it's going to be less use than limited service. So I don't know. I don't know, except for site plan, I don't know why they would even have to come to us if this is what they intend to do.
Right.
Is that right, Bill?
I totally
Yeah, yeah, but
I totally
you
agree,
know,
Mike.
you
I
have,
mean,
you have,
it's the same head.
you have the intention to expand the building, which is, or the business, I'm sorry, which is admirable. And, you know, if you're going to store materials, any of those changes, you need to come back before the board with an amended site plan. So if you have an inkling that that's maybe where you're going to go, you might want to come in before the board now and show what it is that you will be doing. You don't want to expect that you can do that overnight. You know, you're going to need the board's approval for that. So
I understand.
you want some lead time if that's where you're going with it.
Would it be possible to get approval now for the type of use I mentioned? Or if I came in with the future plans or hopeful plans?
Well, generally, when we approve something, if it's going to be putting up another building, it has to be started within 2 years. We can give you an extension of what is it, Bill? Another 2 years?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We can do
So,
that.
you know, so just keep that in mind.
Are you buying? Are you buying the property?
Yes, I apologize. I meant to mention that as well. We're under contract for purchase as well, contingent on what you allow us, if you allow us to use it for what we want to use it for.
But then no question on the use, because the use already matches what you're going to do. The concern, I believe, that the board has is future expansion, because that's a problematic piece of property to do much more with than that's already there.
Okay.
Tight.
You'd have to talk to Bill about this, see what's required for that.
About the what? I'm sorry, you cut out. I apologize.
About the signage, whatever you
The
want.
signage, yes.
Bill Donegan.
Yes, I will.
You said 100 square feet. That's 10 by 10. That's a pretty big sign.
I'm just throwing something out there, but whatever is allowed, I don't know. It could be reduced, it could be adjusted, but it's going to be.
I don't know what.
That's why I said Bill.
Talk to Bill? Okay. I sure will.
Yeah, we've had other work sessions come in for this building, and my recollection was it's a postage size piece of property. And actually the area that was cleared is actually extending off the property. And the right-of-way actually gets wide in that area, right by the parking lot area. And so a good portion of it is in the right-of-way. So advice that I've given to other people who have come in is to also speak to the county and make sure what you're proposing is acceptable to the county, because they may not approve you parking within the right-of-way in that location or have other restrictions. So, you know, speaking with the county it would be advantageous for you to do.
Absolutely. I was planning on it, but I appreciate the advice as well.
I don't really see any issue with us if you're going to stay in the same building and just fix it up. I think that's that's admirable, actually. But just be aware of expansion. That's
right.
We've had proof previous with that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And we would absolutely love to have another HUD contractor. HUD contractors are tough to find. And I don't know if Jean Marie's a contact at the county you probably talked to. Hopatcong is the largest borough in the state of New Jersey that receives HUD's money. We get the most out of the state. So we'd love to see contractors.
Great.
And now your trucks are going to go north instead of south.
Yeah. In a row.
Yeah.
For a good thing, though.
Have you gotten the guidance that you need, sir?
Yes. Thank you very much to everybody for your time. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you come into town.
Yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay. Extensions. Charles Wendland, 338 Maxim. Mr. Wendland would like to extend previously granted variance from March 6, 2018. Is Mr. Wendland here?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wendland, you were here at our last meeting also. There was a slight problem with the notification. I assume that that's been corrected.
Yes, it has.
Mr. Wendland, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and it's your application requesting an extension of a prior approval. Perhaps you can indicate to the board what were the circumstances that prohibited you from proceeding with the construction?
I just couldn't dedicate enough time or money to the project at that particular moment.
Well, I've got to say that the work that has been done already, it really does beautify the place.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to point out that if you do get this extension, which I assume you're going to get, number 7 of the resolution indicates that temporary structures now located on the lot shall be removed. So they're not just going to be moved to the top of the lot, but they'll be removed completely.
Upon completion of building, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Before you get your CO.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, perfect.
Right. Anybody from the board want to have questions or comments about this? Then I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this application for an extension? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, the motion is to approve the extension.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Tappan?
Yes.
Mayor Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Wendland, have fun.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have continued applications. First is Bella Rosa Realty, Block 10707, Lots 6, 7, 8, and 9, Lakeside Boulevard. And we have some correspondence here by email. Dave Pitney, dated February 12th, 2021, requested an adjournment of the Bella Rosa application until the March 16th meeting. So would somebody like to make that motion that we continue?
I'll make that motion.
16th, okay?
Okay. And that would be without further notice?
Without.
Would second it.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Tappan?
Yes.
Mayor Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
I have a question for the board on this application.
Okay.
We gave them some direction about concerns about that one building and about traffic patterns. Why are they continuing asking for this thing to be extended? Are they looking at taking care of both of those items?
No, they're having, they went to the county for some approvals, and they're working with Mr. Rushke and with the county on some water problems and other things.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mark Annis, Block 50208, Lot 26, 247 Squaw Trail. This has been continued, and here they are again with notice. The applicant would like to replace a shed, gain approval for existing second deck, build a garage, build a deck, et cetera, et cetera. So Mr. Annis here?
I am.
I'm here on behalf of Mr. Annis. Good evening.
And that's Mr. Calabella, attorney, so he doesn't have to be sworn in. Mr. Calabella, is anybody going to be testifying?
Yes, I have Joe Gates here, a local architect.
Right.
Some plans were submitted with regard to, some drawings were submitted with regard to the garage and the accessory building. Last time we were before the board was interested in seeing some rendering, some drawings of the buildings. And so we adjourned, of course, and Mr. Gates has prepared those for the board's review. And I have Mr. Gates here to testify to those drawings.
Okay, why don't we get Mr. Gates sworn in, and maybe Mr. Annis as well. And is Mr. Carabella going to be providing any testimony as well?
Mr. Carriego, yeah, we should swear him in, Judge, yes.
Yeah. Okay, want to
Okay.
swear the
The
three of them?
witnesses, please raise your right hands. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. First, Mr. Gates, you're an architect licensed in the state of New Jersey,
Yes, that's correct.
and you were actively involved in the preparation of these plans,
Yes, that is correct.
and you've testified before this board on many occasions as an expert
I have.
in the field of architecture. Mr.
Yes.
Carriega, you're a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey,
Yes,
and you were active in the preparation of these plans,
yes, I was.
and you as well have testified many times before this board as an expert in the field of engineering. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Calabella?
Yeah, I would just ask that the board accept the qualifications of the experts, and I'd like to proceed with Mr. Gates.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, but we've had them, Mr. Gates and Mr. Carriega, many times before.
Was it too many times or?
And no, just
Never.
enough.
Just enough.
Never. Mr. Gates, you just indicated you had an opportunity to draw some plans for a garage and for the accessory building on the Annis property. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And we had an opportunity to submit those to the board, and I would assume, Ms. Rennie, you could put that up for us?
Danielle? Hello, Danielle?
He's there.
Seems like she's working on it.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
So if we could just refer to these plans as A2, since the original site plan was A1. Mr. Gates, if we can just walk through the first picture, first design of the garage, which seems to be on the upper portion of the plan, the proposed garage plans. Could you walk us through that?
Yes, the proposed garage is a 24.5 feet wide by 22 feet front to back for a total of 539 square feet, sorry. That size matches the proposed garage on the site plan prepared by Carriaga Engineering. The garage, as you will notice, is somewhat of a two-story structure with the purpose of trying to get some additional storage up in an attic area. That's the reason there are stairs located at the back right. A lot of times, not necessarily only on the lake, but around Hopatcong, because of the site and rock conditions, a lot of times basements are not easily available or very small. So it is common with a lot of our projects that clients are interested in getting some additional storage when possible.
Are there any electricity or plumbing in the garage?
There will be electricity with some outlets and lighting to be able to get in and out in the dark. There will be no plumbing in the garage whatsoever.
Okay, and that's a single overhead door?
That's correct. It's a single 16-foot wide overhead door.
Okay.
And especially due to the site conditions, not just this property, but around the lake, if you go in one door and come out the back door, you get to a set of stairs going down a steep incline. So certainly any structure that we design, we would want to put some lights inside, even as a minimum, but certainly at the doors entering or exiting to be able to get safely from the garage to the house.
Right.
Okay, with regard to the accessory building, could you describe that?
Yes, the existing accessory building is a two-story structure. It is 17 feet 7 inches high, measured from the outside, going from the door sill to the very peak of the ridge. That is a wood-framed building with the front wall. The walls are block walls, and it is built, the rear wall of the block is part of a retaining wall. So you'll notice that the back right side of this structure, in fact, if you look at the lower left corner of the drawing, the right side elevation shows that this shed is built onto the retaining wall with the grade sloping uphill. The bottom portion of this is used as a workshop, and the upstairs is an open space.
Okay. With regard to utilities, any utilities running to the building?
There are some outlets and some lights in the building. Again, the downstairs is set up as a workshop.
Okay. Is there any plumbing in the building?
There is no plumbing in the building.
Okay. And with regard to I'm just looking at this right side elevation that you mentioned. How does that factor into the actual height of the building?
The grade slopes steeply uphill on the left side of that view, and it slopes downhill on the downhill side of the view. Based on the topography on the site plan, the grades do slope in that direction, going from the uphill side to the downhill side. When we were there 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, it was right after the 30-inch snowstorm, so I could not get an exact height. The building heights are accurate. The grade heights are approximated based on the site plan.
So looking at that same right side elevation, if you were viewing it from the road, it appears that half of the structure is actually concealed underground.
That's
from
correct.
From the roadside?
As you approach that from the driveway, you are walking down a sloped walk and down steps to get to that. So technically, if you're up in the driveway, you're going to be even with the roof of that structure. Although that's more than 6 feet away, so that doesn't count for the average grade, once you're far away. But the whole structure is lower than the parking area.
I see. Okay. If the board has questions with regard to either of those structures, I would just open it up to the questions.
What year was it built?
Mr. Duncan,
Yes, what year was it built?
the structure?
Yes.
I believe it was built, and Mr. Annis will have to answer. I think it was built last year. Mr. Annis?
The original shed that was there was long-standing from sometime between 95 and 2006. And I rebuilt the shed in 17 and November. I started in December of 17 and finished it in March, April.
With building permits?
No.
No permits.
Was it a two-story shed before or one story?
It was a one-story shed. It collapsed in the snowstorm that we had in November of 17 with a heavy snowstorm. And the shed collapsed. It was a very large shed, but the roof caved in. And I asked about it. I asked about it. I was told that I was asked about the footings and whether there'd be a slab or what I was building it on, and that seemed to be a concern. So I replaced it and should have asked more permission because I overbuilt it. I built it higher than the original shed.
Good Lord. Use of the first that collapsed.
Say again, please.
What was the original shed's use? Just storage?
It was the fellow I bought this house from was a contractor, and he was keeping his materials and his tools there.
Okay. So now it's turned into a shop. So that's a use. Is that categorized as a use? Alan? Oh.
Is it your personal shop? Is it your own wood shop? Is it a business? What are you using it for?
No, it's just it's really for my tools. I just work around. I'm a hobby guy. I like building things. I like fixing things. I have it's a tool shop, and I do have a business, but I have a location in another town, and it has nothing to do with contracting.
I may have misunderstood or not heard you. I apologize. Is it on a smaller footprint than the prior shed?
It's a little bit larger because it's not perfectly square. The old building that was there was a square prefabbed shed, and this one I followed the slab that was there, and so it's not square.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Annis, could you just tell the board what you intend to do with the upper part of the shed? that you have. There's a workshop, obviously, in the lower part. There's a second part, which is the upper level. What do you intend to do with that?
Well, right now it's set up as a music studio, and basically, I play instruments, and my other housemates are very much into that. I have a family that I live with, and the son is a musician, and he is asked to do all his music work out there, but we share it.
Okay. And at this point, there's no plumbing in that building, right? Nobody's living there.
There's there's a garden hose downstairs in the shop. There's no plumbing upstairs. It's not habitable. There's no heating elements upstairs. There's nothing.
Okay. So it's not your intention that anybody's going to actually stay there, right?
No.
Okay. And with regard to the garage, if I could ask you, what do you intend to do with the garage?
We have 2 cars, and the idea is just to park the cars. There's and then storage upstairs. I moved out of a much larger house, and I have family heirlooms and things that I'd like to keep dry. I don't have an attic per se. There's in the house that in the main house that we're in here, we've got a small attic that's only accessible through a trap door and a pull down. So you can't get anything up there per se.
So just storage?
Just storage upstairs. The downstairs, the garage, the ceiling is going to have a low ceiling. Probably 7.5 foot ceiling, but there's a garage door opener, so there's really only 7 foot of use. This is just for cars. I drive a Subaru, and it's not that tall.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have questions for Mr. Annis with regard to the use or the buildings?
Questions from the board?
The upstairs of the garage will be one open area?
Yes.
If there aren't any more questions of Mr. Gates or Mr. Annis, we can take down the drawing. Ms. Rennie?
Are we going to be able to ask questions about the other parts of the property?
Of course. I have Mr. Carriega here who's going to get back on the witness stand and testify again. So if you don't have any questions of Mr. Annis and Mr. Gates with regard to the garage or accessory building, I'd like to have Mr. Carriega address some of the issues on the rest of the property.
I have concern about the fact that the accessory building was rebuilt without any permits.
Understood.
I'm not so sure that it's conforming.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gilbert, I can't hear what you're saying.
Hey,
Nobody can.
Whoever has all of that noise in the background, would you please mute your screen? Okay.
If they don't, I will.
Thank you. I said, Mr. Carabella, that I have concern that the shed was rebuilt without any permits. And,
yes.
And I'm questioning whether or not it meets codes.
Understood. And that's, I'm going to have Mr. Carriega address that. And there's no question that Mr. Annis at this point understands, and that's why I want Mr. Carriega to testify, because we do want to come up with a complete mitigation plan for the property, which would include addressing issues that the neighbor has brought up, addressing any issues that run afoul of the ordinance. And Mr. Carriega and I, since the last meeting, have done research and found pictures of what the property looked like prior to Mr. Annis purchasing it, and of course what improvements he made, because there was some confusion last time we were before the board as to what he did and what wasn't done and what was there before. And I'm going to have Mr. Carriega address some of those issues. What we would like to do, if the board will indulge us, is produce for the board an updated plan that will address all of the mitigation items that Mr. Annis is going to take care of to satisfy a lot of the concerns, not only of the board, but of the neighbor who had testified last time. And it's obvious that at this point, Mr. Annis understands that he shouldn't have built that accessory building without permission from the municipality, and that he shouldn't have undertaken some of the projects that he's undertaken. I'm a member of the community. I live in the community, and I appreciate what this board does, and I appreciate what Mr. Donegan does, and it's appropriate for you to be strict. And there's no question that in this particular case, and I appear before this board often, and I understand the necessity to enforce the local ordinances, and I've impressed that upon Mr. Annis. And we're in a position now where he wants to take appropriate steps to mitigate whatever issues have been created on the property, and present an application to the board that would be palatable and acceptable to not only the board, but to the neighbors. He wants to be a good neighbor. He wants to work within the zoning ordinance. And with that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Carriega just to address what he and I have been discussing about putting together a plan for mitigation, addressing each of those issues that the board has brought up last time and the issues that the neighbors have brought up as well. So Mr. Carriega, with that, could you explain to the board what we were discussing and what we would like to do to bring this property into conformance with the ordinance?
Yes. So as a result of Mr. Rushby's review in the last the meeting, the neighbors' comments, we have become aware of a lot of things that were done without permits. And in particular, starting with the septic system, there was some fill placed on top of the septic system. Mr. Annis realizes now that it's not really acceptable to install a fill over the septic and fill adjacent to the property line. So he has agreed to take out all the fill that was produced there. I will produce the best I can do for the pre-existing topography to bring it back down to the original topography that was there prior to the fill being placed, and mitigating all the damage that may have been done with regard to the fencing and the fill that was put in there and brought off-site.
Jeff, just excuse me, can you just share your screen with the site plan? I think that's always helpful for the board and the public. While you're talking about different improvements, you can show it on the plan.
That's fine.
Secretary will have to do that.
Ms. Rennie, could you put that up? That would be A1. Thank you.
Sheet 2 of 4 would be best if you can get that, Danielle.
Yeah. Have there been any changes to the exhibit?
Excuse me?
Have there been any changes to the site plan?
No, not yet.
That's what we're going to discuss, what we want to do.
Basically, what I'd like to be able to do is have some extra time to work on all these changes and correspond with Mr. Rushkey and Mr. Annis to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Is it this one?
That one is sheet 4. Maybe if you could go to sheet number 2.
Sheet 3.
2 or 3, either one.
That's the one right there.
This one?
No, it doesn't have the garage on it.
Yeah, you can scroll up a little bit. It's okay without the garage for now. So up in the right hand.
Doesn't have the septic tanks either on that.
Well, it had the manhole, so I can describe what we're talking about.
Well, there's a drawing that actually has the septic tanks on it.
Yeah, this one right here shows the septic manholes on the top right-hand corner of the property, correct? So that area over there was filled in up against the fence. So fill needs to be taken down to the original grade where the septic was installed originally. And the intent will provide the pre-existing topography as best we can do, and illustrate that the grade will be brought down. Typically no grading within 5 feet of the property line changes, so we'll try to conform with the ordinance with that respect. And that will essentially take care of that item. Down by the lake, there was concern about the sand that was put in for the beach area. So we will get whatever necessary approvals from the DEP for the work that was done close to the lake. I know that was a big concern of the neighboring property owner. And there's a variety of other issues, but again, we'll get into the details and show illustrations of how we're going to mitigate, and I'll probably reduce the number of variances that we're requesting as a result of the revised drawings that were put in to come as close to conformance as we can within reason before we would anticipate a vote from the board.
So Mr. Carriaga, you're proposing to ask for a postponement of the hearing and return to the board with a revised site plan. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I just, you know, and again, feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but I believe that at this point it would be difficult for the board to come to a decision. Some of the comments by Mr. Rushke were indicating, for instance, up at the septic area, if there was any steep slope disturbance, we need to put that on any approval that the board needs to provide. And right now, we really just don't even know how much steep slope disturbance there is until we try to figure out what the pre-existing topography is compared to what was filled in. So it would be difficult to obtain any kind of vote from the board until we identify all of the issues that were identified by Mr. Rushke and the neighbor.
Hey, just one quick question. When permits pulled to put in the generator and the propane storage tank in that location?
That would be a question for Mr. Annis.
Mr. Annis could.
No, there was no permit pulled to put in the generator.
You've got it, and that propane tank's right next to the house. That's not right.
That's a small propane tank.
It's still not allowed to be right next to a house, is it?
Up to 125 gallons it is.
Hey, so you're allowed
I thought it had to be 5 feet away from the house.
Phil, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
No, it depends on there's a current specification on that. It can be against the house. It depends on how far away is it from vents like heating vents, windows, that type of thing. But it can be against the house.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a point that, you know, he noted that a permit was not required, and a permit would likely be required because of the electrical improvements. So I think
the generator's
that's correct,
away from the property line.
Yeah, I think it's something that he has to correct, and I think that's something that Jeff should review with his client regarding, you know, any and all matters that were done without a building permit, like the hot tub or anything else that was done. That should be identified and resolved.
It should be noted though too that when Mr. Annis did buy the property and we pulled up, they're still active online. You can see the photos of the house and the property from 2017 when he bought it. And the second dock was in existence at that point in time. The hot tub was in existence at that point in time. The generator was not. And we already discussed that. Mr. Annis has agreed to relocate the generator to an acceptable location. And if the propane tank needs to be relocated too, we'll deal with that also. But again, there's a host of other issues that we discussed at the last meeting, and we anticipate to go back and retroactively get whatever necessary approvals. It's understood that anything that the board decides right now is going to be subject to the appropriate agencies, whether the DEP or the building department, to also
Yeah, but Jeff, I think it's, you know, you should look back and just because the prior property owner did something without a permit doesn't make it. And so, you know, if the dock was installed and it was installed without permits or other things were installed without permits, unfortunately, you're in front of the board now, and those all should be rectified.
Understood.
Jeff, are you going to generate a list that identifies all the items on this land that was improved with or without a permit? So we
Yes,
have.
yes. Yeah, we discussed that. Yeah, we discussed that at the last meeting, and I know John had put that in his letter also. So yes, we will address all of the items that were done without permits, and they will be permitted as required, or removed as required.
Any additional questions of Mr. Carriego?
So then the objective here is to put this property in complete compliance with all of our ordinances.
That's
That would
correct.
be impossible to do that, but we will come a lot closer than we have right now.
You're saying there's still going to be some variances that you're going to need to ask for.
Absolutely, yes. But it will be reduced from what it is right now.
It'll be
Was the other lot acquired? I see a letter here that they wanted to buy the piece of property from the town. Was that purchased and subdivided?
That I don't know the answer to. I believe our subdivision map is to formalize that subdivision, but maybe Mr. Annis can answer. Was that purchased yet, Mark?
It's been paid for, and your drawings, the new surveys have been supplied to the attorney that represented the town. He was going to be filing those.
I think one of the drawings shows actually where you redid the property line around that one wall.
Actually, the property line still goes around. That's an easement for the. It's a driveway easement.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yep.
So when do we want to carry this to?
Well, I would ask Mr. Carriego, what's a reasonable amount of time for you to actually complete this process? I know that it's taken us quite some time to get all the historical information that we needed. How much time will you need, Mr. Carriego, to complete these plans?
Yes, I'll probably need more than 2 weeks, which is what I'd have to have the plans back to the borough by if we were going to go in a month. So I would say 2 months from now.
2 months?
Correct.
So I would make a formal request that the matter be carried for 2 months to give us an opportunity to present a plan that would address all of these issues.
One of the things that was just said, I think is very important to keep in mind, is the prior property owner that owned the property before you bought it may have made a lot of changes but did not pull permits. That doesn't necessarily give you the right to have a piece of, as say the hot tub. He never, I'm just as an example, the prior owner never applied for a permit for the hot tub, and now you have a hot tub where he had one. You have to justify having that hot tub there. The justification, I don't think, can be because the owner previously had it and didn't apply for a permit and didn't have a permit for that hot tub. Am I right there?
Yeah, no, there's no grandfathering where something was installed without permit, so you don't get any benefit by the fact that it was there before.
Well, you're going to have to apply. All necessary permits have to be applied for, whether they're electrical or physical or construction. You still got to pull a permit for it.
Right.
That's understood.
So we're looking at April 20th. Does that give you enough time?
Yes.
And would we want that with or without notice?
I think it should be with notice, especially because of the neighbor and all the questions that he asked. He has to have the right to come back to the board.
Right.
The only way we can do that is with notice, can't we? We can't just notify him.
Yeah, there's going to be changes in the variance requests anyway, so yes.
Okay.
Yeah. With notice. Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to carry this to April 20th with notice?
There may be a member of the public or two, but they should understand that the applicant is coming back with revised plans. So any comments they would make may not be relevant to what we ultimately see. So if they could come back at a subsequent meeting, it certainly would be preferable than trying to express something tonight.
I agree.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. And let me point out that if Mr. Carriega cannot get this done in time, it would probably be continued again with notice.
Yes.
Just to make sure that the public is always informed on this, something like this big.
Understood.
Okay?
Very
All
good.
right.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Bella, Mr. Carriega, Mr. Ennis, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We already had the zoning officer report. Let's skip the discussion. Resolutions. Raymond Blanchfield hearing date was January 19th, 2021. Motion is in order to approve the Blanchfield resolution permitting the extension of variances for the construction of a second floor on a residential building and to construct a detached two-car garage at 11 Waterloo Road, Block 31704, Lot 8. Do I hear a motion for?
Make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mr. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
No. And second, we have Brian Hamilton, January 19th, 2021. Motion is in order to approve the Hamilton resolution for use of bulk variances to permit the construction of an addition to the residence located in the B1 zone, 4 Waterloo Road, Block 31603.
Make a
So
motion.
moved.
I'll second.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mayor Francis.
No,
Yes.
no. It's a use variance on this one, right?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Gilbert.
No.
No. Okay, did that pass, Danielle?
Yes.
Okay. Correspondence, we have no further correspondence unless somebody else has something. Okay. Escrow refund, Matt Roskowitz, 50 Jefferson Trail, for information only. Anybody want to make a motion to pay the bills?
Pay the bills.
Pay the bills.
Unanimous.
Pay the bills.
Mr. Bongiovanni.
Second.
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. At this point, I will open the meeting to the public. Would anybody from the public like to address the board on any issues at all? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen and hit the reactions to raise your hand. Colleen Lyons, I see you first. So you're on. Colleen, you want to be sworn in first?
Sure,
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, I just had a question about, it's like a kind of a general question, but it is about the 247 Squaw Trail. Am I allowed to ask that?
Sure.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, we just don't want to get into any specifics
Right.
on that because that would be reserved for the hearing itself. If you have a
Okay,
general
so-
question that would apply to lakefront properties, that's fine.
Okay, so generally, if a property owner purchased an easement and subdivided it, and then the total lot size came into conformance, would the requirements for that property be based on a non-conforming lot or a conforming lot?
Conforming lot.
A conforming lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it would then be conforming, and that's what we would be dealing with.
Okay, so in an instance, not this one specifically, where it was like a 35% lot coverage requirement under a non-conforming, it would go to 25% lot coverage.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That was my question.
Okay,
Thank you.
very welcome. Anybody else want to address the board? Any issues at all? If so, go to the bottom of your screen. Reactions, raise your hand. I'll give everybody a moment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any old business? Ron, how are we doing with the ID cards for the members?
I got to catch up to that. I have all the pictures. I'll get with the police. The police are going to start making them for us. I've been out for about 10 days. So I'll circle the wagons back on that, Alan, and we can get those taken care of.
Thank you very much. Any other old business? Is there any new business?
Well, there might be. The school sold.
Oh, really?
School sold, and I think the sale price was 1.2 million. I have no idea. I can't really find out what's going on with it, other than it was sold. It did not close yet, to my knowledge. So that'll be coming at us. And there's also been some question on that house on the corner across from the school, that red house that's been empty forever.
Yep, I know which one.
I think they'll be coming to us for a work session, I believe. What I suggested to the owner to develop that property into something better than what we're looking at now.
Do we know who bought it, Mayor?
Pardon me?
Do we know who won the bid?
I just know it was a conglomerate. It was not an individual. It was some organization. I
don't think they've made a presentation. I don't think they've had a work session with us.
No.
Okay, it wasn't
They
even
have
one of
it.
the two.
They have it.
No.
No, I don't think it was either. But as long as they got $1.2 million, we're happy.
That's right.
Also depends on what they want to do.
Yeah.
Well, we'll deal with that when it happens.
Well, the school, of course, now is in the area in need development, so redevelopment. So they have a lot of options.
Yes.
Okay. Any other new business? Okay. Ms. Crack, you want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
You
Early.
go, girl.